Snow whispered across the King's Road in long, swirling veils, muffling hoofbeats and softening every edge of the world, so that even steel-shod shoes seemed to tread on down. Ned Stark rode at the head of a little column no grander than an ordinary merchant train, cloak drawn close, gray direwolf sigil lost beneath a fresh icing of flakes. He had chosen plain travel leathers instead of his lord's mail, and the 7 men who followed, Harwin, Jory, Ser Roderick, and 4 hand-picked guards, wore no house colors at all. Only the tall youth at the rear, shoulders hunched against the cold, looked out of place. Blacksmith's arms thick as an anvil, cheeks red raw from winds he had never known in King's Landing, hair a must-tumble of coal. Gendry rode a bay cob that huffed at every breath. Twice that morning Ned reined in, letting the horses crop frost-rimmed grass while his eyes swept the pale horizon. He was Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, but here, leagues below Moat Cailin, he felt more a father than anything else, a father keenly aware of the fragile cargo he escorted. Robb's letters rode in his saddlebag, crackling each time he shifted. Cat's latest, still unopened, lay hidden behind them. He dared not read it yet. Words on paper could wait. The boy beside him could not. "Cold enough for you, lad?" he asked when the clouds parted, spilling a dash of sun that glimmered off melt-wet chain links under Ser Roderick's cloak. Gendry straightened in the saddle. Snowflakes clung to lashes too stubborn to blink them free. "I'm well, M-Lord." He said it as though the forge still glowed nearby, as though M-Lord were a customer collecting new hinges. The same blunt honesty that had stirred Ned the first time he heard that Smith's bell voice. Robert's features were there, yes, the strong jaw, the thickness of limb, but it was the lad's candor that haunted him. A trait from Robert as he had once been, before crown and wine soured everything bright. "You need not M-Lord me every breath," Ned said, gentle. "When we're alone, Lord Stark suffices. In Winterfell you'll call me what feels right." Gendry looked puzzled. "I, Lord Stark," the words steamed out like dragon breath. "Still feels strange, riding with a true lord. Never saw beyond the street of steel. Strange things soon become habit in the north." Ned turned his horse, giving the order to move. "The sooner we put leagues behind us, the warmer your bed will be." They pressed on. By mid-afternoon the road narrowed through a stand of bare birch, their trunks white as bone. Ravens flitted overhead, cawing at the riders as though presaging secrets. Ned's thoughts wandered to Jon, to Bran, to Arya scowling at her needlework, then circled back to the quiet figure trailing them. How would the boy fare amid the direwolves? Would Cat greet him with the same stony courtesy she gave Jon, or with something harsher? He had wrestled those questions the length of the neck, never finding answers. A king's blood beat in Gendry's veins, but bastards' blood too. And Winterfell was not a place that forgot bastards easily. Evening found them at the ruins of an old watchtower half swallowed by icy reeds. They lit a small fire in the lee of toppled stones. Snow still fell, thin now, more ash than feather. Gendry squatted near the flames, palms extended. Ned sat opposite, stretched out, letting warmth lick stiff knees. Harwin passed a skin of sour red. Gendry accepted, wrinkled his nose at the taste, coughed, and handed it on. The men chuckled quietly. Ned watched him, measuring. There was no guile in the lad, no sense of what he truly was. Perhaps that ignorance was blessing. Robert's bastards had never fared well when kings or queens remembered them. "Lord Stark," Gendry ventured after a silence. "Why me?" Roderick paused in sharpening his dagger. Harwin's laughter died. Ned felt every gaze settle, the crackling fire now the loudest thing between them. He thought of Ser Jon Arryn, of cold marble in the September of Baelor, of whispering girls in alleys who vanished after giving up secrets. He thought of Cersei. "Because you are worth more than gold," he said at last. "Because the forge is too small for what you might become. Because a friend would have wanted you safe." He tossed another stick on the fire. Sparks leapt skyward like tiny comets and died. "And because the wall is not the only place needing strong arms." Gendry nodded, though he clearly understood little. That too was a mercy, They crossed Moat Cailin beneath banners of fog. The causeway's broken pylons jutted like rotted teeth, and the bogs steamed faintly where warm earth met frigid air. When barrows loomed ahead, Ned slowed, pointing out ruins older than kingdoms. "The first men stood here against the undull tide," he told Gendry. "Stone and blood together, before iron or dragons." The boy listened without blinking, awe flickering behind dark eyes. That was good. The North should impress upon him its weight, its memory. Reverence would root him faster than 100 lessons. At the upper gate, men of the Crannigs greeted them with reed-pennoned spears. Their chieftain, a wiry woman wrapped in moss cloak, bowed low to Ned and cast a curious glance at Gendry. Rumor, it seemed, already loped ahead. They made Siren Hall by dusk. Ned traded news with Lady Dustin, cold pleasantries masking mistrust, while Gendry dined in the hall's shadowed corner, devouring trencher after trencher as though each bite were his last. In the morning they rode on. Snow deepened with every league. On the fourth dawn after Siren Hall, Winterfell's towers emerged faint as ghosts through a curtain of white. The scent of smoke, wood, peat, and the faint tang of hot iron carried on the wind. Ned's heart clenched. A horn sounded from the battlements. Crows scattered. Gates groaned. As they passed beneath the portcullis, Ned saw Maester Luwin descending stone steps at speed, gray robes flapping. Robb followed in a whirl of fur-lined cloak, eyes bright with relief, hair whipped red by the gale. Bran clutched Hodder's back, whooping. Arya darted between stable hands before anyone could stop her, Nymeria bounding at heel. Sansa emerged slower, serene, guiding little Rickon by the hand. At her shoulder, Lady brushed against her skirts. Cat stood above them all on the gallery walk, face unreadable. Jory called halt. Ned dismounted and felt the frozen ground stable beneath boots. Robb reached him first. Father and son clasped forearms fiercely. Words failed a moment. Then Bran shrieked, "Father!" and was deposited into Ned's waiting embrace, thin arms flung tight about his neck. He smelled crushed pine and boy sweat. Arya demanded a sword lesson the instant he put Bran down. Sansa curtsied, voice a melodious welcome. Rickon just stared, thumb in mouth, then giggled when Ned tousled his curls. Cat descended last, composed as the weirwood in winter, and her kiss on Ned's cheek was light as snowfall. Only then did the household see the youth astride the bay. Gendry slid down awkwardly, unsure whether to bow. He came forward with hammer-calloused hands fidgeting at his belt. "My lady," Ned said, drawing Cat's gaze from him to the boy. "This is Gendry, son of—" He paused. Truth warred with caution. "Of a friend long past. He will dwell with us as my ward." Cat's eyes narrowed the fraction of a hair. "Your ward." Nothing more, but the words hung sharp as broken ice. Robb stepped forward. "Welcome to Winterfell, Gendry." His smile was easy, his handshake firm. Arya sniffed him, then grinned. Bran craned from Hodder's shoulders, studying Gendry as though he were a new kind of direwolf. Jon appeared last, emerging from the armory arch, black hair damp with sweat from morning drills. His gaze met Ned's, questioning. And something else. Wary hope, perhaps, that he would not be the only half-blood outcast now. Gendry's eyes widened at the sight of him. They might have been brothers from opposite mothers. Snowflakes settled on their shoulders as they regarded one another, silent. Cat cleared her throat. "Lord Stark must be weary. Bring him hot wine. Bran, Sansa, see that your sisters mind the corridor. Maester, you will have rooms readied." Luwin inclined his head. "At once, my lady." Gendry looked to Ned.
Ned nodded.
"Go with Maester Luwin. He'll see you fed and settled." As the lad moved, Ned heard whispers ripple among stable boys. Who is he? Why here? The truth would spread soon enough. Truths always did. Inside the great hall the fires were stoked high, hounds lounged on rushes, and the sour smell of turnip stew mixed with smoky oak. Ned stripped off his gloves, flexing stiff fingers. Cat poured his wine herself, crimson liquid steaming in the cup. When their eyes met, Words passed unspoken. Later, in his solar, she spoke them. He is Robert's get, isn't he? No accusation, only the cool certainty she reserved for sums and ledgers. Ned closed the latch. Aye. She paced to the window, watching snow spiral. Does he know? Not yet. And you mean to keep it so? For now. Kat's shoulders rose, fell. Jon will feel this keenest. 2 bastards in one keep. He is not merely a bastard, Ned said, more sharply than intended. He is the king's blood, and Robert's enemies multiply with every moon. Cersei. He stopped. The walls might have ears. Safer here. Kat turned, eyes softening. I trust you, Ned, but keep no secrets that could wound our own. Jon deserves honesty too. He wanted to promise, but honor tangled around secrecy until neither breathed. In time, he said instead. That night, Winterfell's gods would lay hushed under a vault of ice-laden boughs. Candles guttered in lanterns along the path. Ned stood beneath the heart tree, crimson leaves fluttering like silent tongues. Snow sifted down, feathering his hair. He knelt, sword before him, and prayed to the old gods for guidance. For the boy he had taken in, the son of a friend who once laughed louder than any man living. For Jon, whose place in the world shifted like wind on moorgrass. For Kat's grace, fragile as thin glass. And for the storms he sensed on every horizon, darker for the quiet that preceded them. A soft crunch behind him. Jon stepped into the lantern glow, ghost-white direwolf at heel. Father, he said, voice low enough not to wake ravens. Is it true? He's the king's. Ned rose slowly. Snow melted on ice's edge. Not here, he answered, and together they left the heart tree to its vigil. Winterfell woke early and worked late. Within a fortnight, Gendry had tasted nearly every duty a page might know. Sweeping the yard, oiling chainmail, mucking stalls, measuring grain, carrying messages from Maester Luwin to Septon and Smith alike. He did all without complaint, though Jon noted bruises on his palms where hammer blisters met cold rains. The two of them shared lessons with Robb beneath Ser Roderick's stern eye. Gendry swung a practiced sword with raw power, Jon with quick grace. Each bout ended unpredictably, and rivalry burned bright but clean. One frosted dawn, Arya dragged Gendry to the archery butts. Bet you can't loose 3 shafts before I loose 5, she jeered, face half hidden behind her furs. He tried, failed, laughed. Later Bran demanded rides astride Gendry's shoulders while Robb sparred. Even Sansa, prim as a swan, offered him a tentative smile after Septa Mordain praised his penmanship. Penmanship Jon secretly coached each night by candlelight, refusing credit. Kat watched it all, outwardly composed. Only Ned saw the tension behind her courtesy. The careful seating at meals, the polite but cool questions. Do you miss King's Landing's markets, Gendry? And the way her gaze slipped past him when he brushed Jon's shoulder. On the 15th day, a raven came from White Harbor. Lord Wyman requested audience regarding new tariffs. Ned made ready to ride at once, taking a modest retinue. Before dawn, he found Gendry in the yard, practicing cuts into a straw dummy, breath fogging. The boy halted, flushed at being caught. Keep at it, Ned said. But remember, strength unguided is like a river without banks. Ser Roderick will teach form. You must teach patience. Gendry nodded, eyes shining. I'll learn, Lord Stark. Ned laid a hand on the lad's shoulder. When I return, we'll talk. About Robert, about what blood meant and did not mean. About choices carved on iron, not oak. But first he would see Manderley, gauge the whisper tide that carried news north. Already rumors of Lannister gold moving in the south reached his ears. If fire brewed in King's Landing, Winterfell must be ready. He left Jon to watch over things, Jon, who bore the weight of bastardy like a cloak of thorns but had never let it pierce his brother's skin. And he left Kat to weigh mercy against caution. As the column rode from the gates, snow began once more. Ned glanced back. On the battlements stood 2 figures side by side. Jon in worn black wool, Gendry in stark gray. The wind whipped their cloaks together, so from afar they looked almost one shadow, taller than the stones beneath their feet. Days in White Harbor brimmed with politics disguised as feasts. Lord Wyman plied Ned with sugared oysters and soft words about loyalty. Yet his son Wylis pressed for timber rights beyond the Wolf's Wood. Merchants whispered of Lannister caravans buying northern furs for twice their worth. When Ned sought confirmation of royal moves, he found only half-smiles and speculations. That the Queen drafted new decrees, that old Jon Arryn's death lingered like bad candle smoke over the realm. On the fifth evening, a hooded man approached Jory in the fish market and delivered a sealed note. Its wax bore no sigil, yet the hand was Catelyn's. "Come home. Bran fell. Needs you." Ned left within the hour, snow or no snow. The ride north was a blur of frost-rimmed wind and pounding hearts. The maester's raven had flown swifter. By the time he reached Winterfell's gate, Ned knew Bran still breathed but had not woken. Candlelight swam through tall windows as he hurried to the keep. Gendry met him on the stair, face drawn. "Jon's with Bran," he said, voice hoarse. "He hasn't left." Cat, pale but steady, greeted Ned in the corridor. No accusation, only exhaustion. Together they entered Bran's chamber. The child small against pillows, splints lining his legs. Jon sat nearby, ghost curled white about his boots. He rose when Ned entered, eyes red. "He dreamed of climbing," Jon said. "Kept saying he saw the wall." Ned's gaze shifted to Gendry behind him. Bran's misfortune was Winterfell's, binding them all. Gendry looked lost, powerless strength hanging at his sides. "Come," Ned said, beckoning. "He needs us all." The youth stepped forward and knelt at the bedside, huge hands dwarfed by Bran's limp fingers. He spoke no word, but tears welled and fell, leaving dark spots on the linen. In that moment Ned understood. Bloodlines and bastardy, wards and wolves, none of it weighed against simple human mercy. Robert would have wept thus once for a brother or a son. So would any good man. Outside, snow thickened, wrapping Winterfell in white silence. Inside, a shattered family knit tighter around a boy who dreamed of the sky. And within that tight circle a newcomer found place, not by right but by heart. The heart tree's face watched through a slit of glass, its red eyes patient. Storms still gathered unseen, but for now Winterfell endured, and the fires in its halls burned bright with promise. Morning again, brittle and blue. Maester Luwin dozed in a chair. Jon fetched broth. Gendry remained beside the bed, half awake, murmuring stories of hammers and bells as though rhythm might coax Bran back. When Ned laid a blanket over the boy's shoulders, Gendry startled, then smiled. A flicker of Robert at 16, unburdened. Ned smoothed Bran's hair, whispering of great gray wolves and soaring ravens, of the wall's immensity and forests older than memory. He told his son to return, to open his eyes and claim the heights he loved. And as he spoke, Cat rested her hand on his. Sorrow-tempered love flowed through that touch. Outside, ravens wheeled black against the dawn, cawing secrets northward. The world turned, slow as winter's thaw. In the yard below, Robb strapped on his sword, meeting Theon for drills. Farther off, Arya practiced stances with Syrio Farrell, laughter crisp. Life pushed onward, relentless. Ned looked up, through the glass to the sky beyond, and vowed. When Bran woke, he would fly, if not on walls of stone, then on the wings of those who loved him. And Gendry, Robert's seed now rooted in Winterfell soil, would grow beneath the same sky, guided by honor and the iron discipline of the North. The path ahead was long, tangled with politics and peril, but in this quiet chamber Ned found the first step sure beneath his feet. So he spoke softly to Bran, and to Jon, and to Gendry, weaving a bond stronger than bastardy, stronger than blood. The bond of chosen kin, forged in snow and shadow and the stubborn hope of a Stark heart that would not break. When Bran stirred days later, opening eyes hazy yet shining, Gendry was the first to see. His shout brought Maester and family rushing, and for a breathless hour the halls rang with disbelief and joy. Bran could not move his legs, but his smile when he saw his father broke every heart and mended them anew. Jon squeezed his brother's hand. Arya kissed his brow. Even Sansa's composure melted into tears. Kat knelt, voice trembling as she thanked every god, old and new. Only when calm returned did Bran notice the tall stranger hovering shyly near the door. "Who's he?" he asked, voice thin as reed. Ned's answer filled the chamber, quiet but firm. "A friend, Bran. One who watched over you when we could not. His name is Gendry, and this is his home now, as much as it is yours." Bran reached out. Gendry took the small hand carefully, as though it were glass. "Thank you," the boy whispered. Gendry flushed, ducked his head. "Glad you're awake." Maester Luwin ushered most away then, but Ned lingered in the corridor, listening to Gendry's low voice recounting simple forged tales. Bran laughed. A soft, cracked thing that grew stronger with each breath. Winterfell breathed with him. Fires crackled. Snowflakes danced. And somewhere in the distance, a lone dire wolf howled. Its cry neither grief nor warning, but something new. Something beginning. Ned Stark closed his eyes a moment, letting that sound settle in his bones. Then he opened them and stepped forward, ready at last to face the coming storm. Not alone, but with a forge-strong ward at his side, and every child of Winterfell bound tighter than ever by the cold and by the fire that resisted it. The North remembers, and so would he. Benjen carried Bran through the first slow fall of dusk. The boy's hands pressed to his uncle's chest as though to feel the heartbeat beneath. Bran had begged to see the yard again, to hear the clang of practiced swords and the breathy snort of Winterfell's horses, and Maester Luwin, feeling reckless with hope, had agreed. A sling of sable fur swaddled Bran's legs, stiff in splints, but his eyes darted everywhere, hungry. The world had returned to him in muted colors and muffled sounds, yet every sensation seemed as bright as new forged steel. Gendry and Jon sparred under the watchful gaze of Ser Roderick, wooden blades chipping as pine met pine. Robb circled them with feints, seeking an opening neither yielded. Bran's lips parted when Jon ducked a swipe, rolled, came up inside Gendry's guard, and tapped the broad chest twice in rapid succession. "Good," Roderick called, mustache rimmed with frost. Again slower, feel the breath between each strike. Gendry, cheeks afire, saluted Jon with the practiced sword. Sweat darkened his tunic despite the cold. When he hefted his shield this time, he advanced more cautiously, boots crunching the packed snow in a steady cadence. Jon mirrored him, ghost-pale wisps of hair clinging to his brow. Their movements grew fluid, less a contest than a shared rhythm. Gendry's brute reach meeting Jon's reactive precision, power and technique sliding together like iron in a smith's tongs. Bran clutched Benjen's cloak. "They're better than before. They push each other." Benjen's smile wrinkled weather-tanned skin. "The wall could use men who learn half so fast." At the next pass, Gendry executed a textbook parry. Ser Roderick barked approval, and Jon, changing pace, flowed around the shield to cuff his opponent's thigh. Gendry absorbed the blow, countered with a backhand that skidded off Jon's guard. They broke, panting clouds, and as they reset, Bran let out an involuntary whoop. Both boys turned. Jon's grin appeared, quicksilver. Gendry's answering smile shone broader, almost bashful. Night settled early. Torches lined Winterfell's walkways, plumes of resinous smoke curling into the crystalline air. Bran returned to bed exhausted yet exhilarated, recounting every thrust until his lids drooped. Catelyn sat with him through the twilight bell, stroking hair still brittle from weeks of bedrest. When his breathing deepened, she lingered, head bowed, listening to the crackle of the brazier. Footsteps at the threshold. Ned, tightening his cloak. "He's strong," he whispered. "He's your son." Her voice carried neither blame nor bitterness tonight, only tired wonder. "All of them are." Ned reached and touched her shoulder gently. "Rest, Cat. I'll keep watch." She rose, smoothing the coverlet, and paused at the door. "The boy, Gendry. He never leaves Bran's side when he can help it. Jon too. Do you fear rivalry? Rivalry breeds steel when guided." Ned's gray eyes reflected candle flame, and they temper each other's pride. Catelyn's answer was a slow nod. Then she was gone, leaving Ned alone amid the hush of the sick room. From the yard a hammer began ringing, measured. As Gendry returned to the forge, he had begged Mikken to let him use after curfew. Iron bent to pattern beneath his blows, sparks shooting gold into the blue dark. Jon stayed, feeding the brazier, his silhouette wavering in wavering light. Days lengthened by heartbeats, not hours. Snow piled on snow, but new routines rooted deep. At dawn, Gendry joined Jon for sword forms. Mid-morning, he apprenticed under Mikken, elbows deep in coal dust. Afternoons, he ran errands Luwin devised to teach the keep's layout, bringing parchments to the steward, counting sacks in the granary, measuring barley for the kennels. Evenings, he studied letters and sums at a board scraped clean of chalk only when Arya crept in to scrawl wolfish glyphs. By lantern glow, he copied Jon's neat script until his blunt fingers cramped. More than once, Maester Luwin found lad and bastard dozing side by side, quills fallen, parchment smudged by cheek. Robb, seeing comradeship form, folded Gendry into his own circles. They hunted rabbits on soft-footed ponies across the Godswood glades. Robb, Jon, Theon, and the ward. For youths laughing amid snow-heavy pines while their dire wolves loped ahead. Grey Wind accepted Gendry after one wary sniff. Ghost remained aloof but ceased to snarl. Theon, amused by Gendry's blacksmith tales, teased relentlessly, a peasant with a prince's biceps. Gendry endured it gamely until Theon pushed too far during archery, jeering each missed shot. Robb barked at Theon to cease. The ward's hammer-thick neck reddened, but he kept his peace. That night, the iron-bound practice target bore dents the breadth of a shield boss. Gendry's arrows finding home after home under Jon's quiet tutelage. Catelyn watched from frosted windows. She found herself comparing Gendry's earnest obedience to Jon's reserved resilience and wondering why two bastards might stir such unequal reactions in her heart. One evening, as she passed the library, she overheard Gendry painstakingly sounding out the history of Bael the Bard to Bran. The rhythm faltered whenever the text named a lady. Gendry stumbled over myth and maiden. Bran supplied corrections in a thread of thin excitement, and both boys laughed at their shared triumph. Catelyn lingered unseen, shame tightening her throat, for she sensed a lesson there larger than words. Winter's talons clenched harder. The river north of the walls froze thick enough for skating. Arya convinced Gendry to try. He crashed thrice before mastering the slick dance, shouting at the moon and hauling Bran's wicker sled across the ice as dire wolves chased reflections beneath. Sansa and little Rickon watched from a brazier-lit bank, Sansa's cheeks pink as rose quartz. She practiced waltz steps on the snow to keep warm, giggling whenever her silk shoes slipped. Inside, Mikken cursed the cold that muted his bellows. He set Gendry to fashioning new hinges for the main gate after the last freeze cracked them. The ward pounded iron with a patience seldom seen in green boys. Mikken grunted approval. "Stroke, breathe. Stroke, breathe," he muttered. "Let the metal tell you when." By the week's end the hinges hung true, and Ned himself inspected the work, weight-testing each pivot. "Well made," he said, voice carrying so the yard heard. "Winterfell stands firmer for your labor." Gendry, face blackened with soot, could not find words enough. His flush of pride glowed through grime. That night, at the high table, Ned raised a cup. To strength in many forms, he named Mikken and Gendry both. The hall roared approval. Catelyn added warm thanks, and though her smile did not erase all distance, it eased the set of Gendry's shoulders through the meal. Jon observed quietly. Later, outside the kennels, he clapped Gendry on the back. "You've earned hot water, at least." Gendry chuckled, looking toward the steaming baths in faint disbelief. Born to sweat and soot, he had never dreamt of soaking muscles in fragrant cedar tubs while snow pattered on skylights. Yet there he sat, grin wide, as Jon and Robb argued whose direwolf shed more fur in the drains. Ravens bore rumors like frostbite. 2 messages arrived frozen to their perches. One from Lord Manderley reporting Lannister men seen at White Harbor docks, the other from the Eyrie. Lady Arryn refused to release Tyrion Lannister after an altercation on the high road. Ned devoured each, brow knotted. In the godswood he paced beneath the heart tree while snow scurfed his hair. Hearing again Jon Arryn's rasping final words whispered by Varys's little pigeons. He weighed oath against risk, fatherhood against realm, and knew a reckoning grew close. That evening he summoned Gendry to the solar. The boy entered, fidgeting with a rawhide tie that barely tamed unruly black hair. Candlelight made his face both Robert's and not, a chisel of the king's youth buried in new clay. Ned dismissed guards, closed the door, and bade Gendry sit. "What I tell you," he said slowly, "may carry danger. Do you wish the truth, though it burdens?" Gendry's eyes widened. "Yes, Lord Stark. Always." Ned poured 2 cups of mulled wine, passed one across. "You know of bastards, how the law names them. I'm one." Gendry's grip tightened on the cup. "Your mother served in King's Landing." Ned's tone gentled. "Your father was Robert Baratheon." Silence thick as river ice. Gendry blinked once, twice, uncertain if jest. Ned allowed time, watching emotions flicker. Shock, anger, disbelief, a curious brightness. At last the boy whispered, "The king! I was his friend, brother in spirit once." Ned set his own cup down untasted. "He named me protector of his blood would any danger threaten. Such danger stirs now." Gendry's voice shook. "He never knew me." "I believe he did, though politics kept him distant. He forged you in steel and strength, if not in guidance." Ned's hand closed over the boy's forearm. "No royal mantle lies on your shoulders. Your worth is forged by deeds, not birth. But some will kill for that birth alone. Like they killed Jon Arryn?" The lad's quick leap startled Ned. He inclined his head. "Perhaps. Secrets weigh. They sharpen daggers." Ned drew breath. "So you must choose whether to keep this truth close, to grow in Winterfell's shadow until you are ready to wield it, or to cast it aside and be simply Gendry, blacksmith's son." Gendry stared at the fire, its tongues painting gold in his pupils. "I'm no lord. I swing hammer better than words. But if truth needs guarding, I'll guard it. I'll forge it into something good." Relief cut through Ned like spring sunlight. "That is enough." He pressed a small wolf-head brooch into the lad's palm. "Wear this under your tunic, a token that Winterfell stands with you." Gendry nodded, eyes wet. "Thank you, Lord Stark." When he left, steps lighter, Jon waited in the corridor, all casual posture, but his dark gaze flicked to the closed door.
Gendry exhaled fog.
"He told me," he murmured. Jon tilted his head. "And I thought I'd feel different." A shaky laugh. "Still me." He clapped Jon's shoulder. "Still owe you that rematch tomorrow." They walked, shoulder to shoulder, into halls lit by wolf-shaped sconces. On the 12th morning of the new moon, Bran's voice rang through the keep. "Fetch me the saddle." The design Tyrion Lannister had drafted weeks earlier, intended to let Bran ride despite useless legs, now neared completion. Mikken had built the braces. Gendry had hammered the rivets. Even Theon had contributed boar hide from his last hunt for padding. In the yard Bran sat astride Gentle Dancer, face flushed with cold and triumph, as Hodder steadied the reins. Robb held the pony's bridle while Jon adjusted girth straps, referencing the dwarf's meticulous sketches. Gendry tightened buckles with sure fingers, explaining how the weight distributed. Catelyn watched from the gallery, heart clenched between pride and fear. When all was secure, Bran pressed his palms to leather grips and nodded. Robb eased Dancer forward, slow steps, then released. Bran swayed but steadied. Snow scattered beneath hooves. A cheer erupted from servants lining the walls. Even dour Septa Mordain clapped gloved hands. Bran's laughter soared higher than Ravencry. He guided Dancer in a wobbling circle, toes skimming snowflakes. Gendry jogged beside, ready to catch him if balance failed. It never did. Later, before the hearth, Bran could not stop talking. "Did you see? Gendry fixed the stirrup angle so my hips don't twist. We'll try trotting tomorrow." Jon and Robb exchanged relieved glances, knowing the road ahead long but now possible. Catelyn kissed each boy's brow. affection equal, as though the ward's work stitched him into her tapestry at last. That night Gendry sat alone at the forge, staring at glowing coals turned almost gray. He heard Robert's voice in half-remembered memories. Booming laughter near the street of steel, the king's stride unsteady after wine, a bear of a man who never once looked his way. He hammered iron flat, shaping nothing, until Micken's gruff knuckles rapped the anvil. "Fire's low enough," the smith said. "Go sleep. Metal and men both need rest to harden." Gendry quenched the blank bar, steam hissing like a sigh. On his way across the yard he passed the direwolf kennels. Ghost lifted a white head, eyes ember-bright. For a moment boy and beast studied each other. Two creatures half inside their skins, secrets ripening beneath. Gendry touched the iron pendant beneath his tunic and walked on. In the godswood Ned knelt before the weirwood. Snow coated his shoulders like ash. His breath came in visible prayers. He thought of King's Landing summons he could no longer ignore, of plots swirling around a chair of swords, of Cersei's emerald glare. He thought of his children and the ward who was now nearly one of them. Leaves rustled faintly though no wind stirred, and he fancied the heart tree's red sap tears thicker that night, as though the old gods foresaw sorrow carving fresh grooves. The horns sounded at dawn, riders approaching from the south. Ned and Jory strode to the battlements as banners crested the ridge. Grey Lion, Red Field. Lannister men, 20 strong, golden cloaks shimmering. The captain bore a letter stamped with the hand's fiery sigil. Ned's jaw tightened. Inside the great hall, as fires crackled and crimson-liveried envoys stamped snow from boots, Ned slit the wax. Ser Jaemery Hill, emissary, bowed with feline grace. The writ summoned Lord Eddard Stark to King's Landing with all haste, naming him Hand of the King in Jon Arryn's stead. "His grace presses urgency," Jaemery purred. "Matters of state cannot wait on weather." A hush. Cat's hand, white on the table edge, trembled. Robb stiffened. Jon's face went blank. Sansa stared wide-eyed, half dreaming of courtly pageants. Arya muttered a curse Syrio Farrell would scold. Gendry felt a cold knot tighten. King's Landing called. His birth's shadow lengthened. Ned dismissed the hall-safe family. He scanned the faces of his children, north and south pulling upon each. "I must go," he said, voice even. "Robert is my friend, but the realm needs more than friendship." Catelyn lifted her chin. "Take the girls. Sansa must see court. Arya, too, though she'll protest." "That I will," Arya answered. "Bran needs me here," Ned countered. "And winter comes. Robb shall hold Winterfell alongside Maester Luwin. Jon," he hesitated. "Jon will stay as well. His place is here until he chooses otherwise." Jon dropped his gaze, relief and disappointment mingling. Sansa began to protest but fell silent at Cat's look. Gendry felt invisible weight shift between all of them. Loyalties like threads tugged by unseen looms. That night snow lashed in hard needles. Gendry joined Jon atop the inner wall, looking out over indigo drifts. Lantern light made halos in the flurry. "You worried?" Gendry asked. "Always." Jon leaned on a merlin. "King's Landing smells of perfumed lies. I've only known the words from others, but they curdle in the telling." Gendry blew warmth into cupped hands. "If he asks, I'll go." Jon turned, surprise flickering. "You may have to. Your blood doesn't change who I choose to follow." Gendry's jaw set. Winterfell's been more home in one moon than Flea Bottom in 16 years. Jon weighed that, then nodded. They watched snow fill footprints until none remained. Far below, Ned locked himself in the solar with parchment after parchment. Robert's official seal, Varys's scratchy ink, Littlefinger's flowery phrasing. Each word a spider thread tugging him south. He penned instructions for Robb, a letter for Ser Roderick Manning Moat Cailin, and one for Gendry, sealed with plain gray wax. "Walk the slow path. Trust steel, not whispers. The wolf protects the stag beneath winter's wing." Preparations engulfed the keep. Horses needed shoeing, provisions packed, guards selected. Catelyn oversaw it all, the smooth steel in her voice forging order. Arya hid, balking at the prospect of silk gowns. Sansa fluttered, already crafting a song to sing before the queen. Bran frowned at being left. Ned promised raven-sent stories of court each fortnight. Rickon clung to Robb, snarling that he would bite any lion who came too near. In the forge, Gendry shaped new horseshoes for the journey. Sparks flew like fireflies, illuminating lines of muscle that Mikken declared wasted on nobility. When hot iron hissed in the trough, he thought of the road south, of towering red keeps and golden lions, and of alleys where a bastard boy once huddled. On the eve of departure, Ned called him to the armory. Torches guttered, and steel glinted from racks. Ned held a short sword, plain yet strong, pommel engraved with a direwolf. "It's too fine," Gendry stammered. "It is serviceable," Ned corrected. "You earned it every day since the neck. Keep it hidden while you travel. Should I need you, you'll ride with Jory after us. If not, you stay, train, protect my family. You trust me? I know your heart." Pause. "And I trust the man you will become." Gendry took the blade. It felt lighter than the knowledge thrust upon him, but he buckled it with quiet pride. Before dawn, the southbound party mustered. Ned, Sansa, Arya, Septa Mordain, Jory, 20 guards, 2 wagons of supplies. Jon led Ghost to watch. Bran, bundled, was carried by Hodder so he might wave farewell. Gendry stood beside Robb and Theon at the gate. Snow muffled hooves as Ned leaned from his saddle to clasp Robb's hand. "Winterfell is yours to rule until I return." "It will stand," Robb vowed. Ned's gaze searched Jon. Words hovered, unsaid, yet known. Then he spurred his horse. The gate chains rattled. The party slipped into the white beyond. Gendry exhaled vapor that hung like a ghost. The world felt suddenly wider, Winterfell suddenly colder. Robb turned, setting shoulders wider. Back to drills. His command rang adult now, inheriting weight. Jon lingered a beat, eyes fixed on the vanishing column. Gendry touched his sleeve. "We'll keep them safe," he said. Jon nodded, Ghost pressing flank to knee. "And ourselves." A wry half-smile. "Come, Lord Baratheon." "I'll knock your teeth out," Gendry muttered. But the joke eased something tight in both. They descended to the yard where Bran waited to be hoisted onto Dancer. Snow swirled, but life pushed on. Moon after moon slid across raven wings. Letters arrived, 2 sealed with Baratheon stag, edges torn as though handled roughly. Ned wrote of court intrigue, of justs for Joffrey's name day, of unease coiled behind latticework compliments. Sansa adored the lines describing silk pennants and lemon cakes. Arya's missives brimmed with names like Syrio Farrell and the Marentrant she despised. From Catelyn came fewer words. King's Landing stank of vultures. The king drank nightly. The queen's smile grew thinner each feast. She asked after Bran's health, Robb's sleep, Jon's discipline. Gendry devoured every scrap, piecing puzzle edges of politics he barely understood. He sharpened his sword, practiced stances with Jon until they moved like mirror shadows. Bran progressed from walk to gentle canter, laughter echoing through spruces. Robb negotiated grain tithes with Karstark emissaries, leaning on Maester Luwin's counsel. Theon grew restless, thirsting for reaving seas he had not seen in years. Summer snuck a faint thaw, and with it a raven bearing dire ink. Lord Eddard Stark charged with treason, confined. Orders for his arrest issued by King Joffrey Baratheon. Jory's name appeared among the slain in the streets of King's Landing. Winterfell's hall howled with alarm. Catelyn's letter followed 2 days behind. She had fled the capital, taking refuge at the Eyrie with her sister. Details fragmented. Blood in the throne room, gold cloaks turning, Littlefinger's betrayal. Robb slammed fists to oak. "Call the banners." Maester Luwin half pleaded caution, but Robb's voice collected years in a breath. "We march south. Father lives, he must but Lion's Circle." Jon stood, eyes flaring. "The Night's Watch oath." Robb's glare softened. "I will never rob you of honor, brother. Yet I need you." Stark blue eyes cut to Gendry. "And you, If father trusted you, I will too. Will you ride? Gendry felt the pull of blood louder than any forge bell. Robert Seed, Ned's ward, now commander's comrade. I'll ride. Preparation became frenzy. Ravens to Carhold, Torrance Square, Bear Island. Smithy fires burned day and night. Mikken hammered breastplates, apprentice by apprentice. Gendry fashioned ARR. Heads 30 at a time, sweat streaking soot on arms like basalt. Jon drilled new levies, Ghost pacing the ranks. Bran denied the march, sulked until Maester Luwin promised ravens every week. Catelyn returned within 10 days, half-starved, determination blazing. Her embrace with Robb cracked both their composures. Her nod to Gendry was firm, grateful. A council convened round Winterfell's long table. Robb presiding, Catelyn, Great Jon Umber, Lady Mormont's envoy, Galbart Glover, Theon, Jon, Gendry silent at flank. Strategies tangled with pride. Great Jon roared that a Baratheon bastard could rally Storm's End if truth resurfaced. Catelyn weighed the cost of Southern eyes on Gendry's blood. In the end they agreed. His lineage would stay hidden until needed. Gendry accepted, though the concealment felt both shield and shackle. The army gathered beneath skies still pale with lingering winter. 10,000 men under direwolf banners filled fields beyond Wintertown. Gendry looked upon the host from a ridge, awed. "I was born in a hovel," he murmured. Jon beside him shrugged. "So was I in a way." He pointed at the rippling sea of spears. "Yet here we stand, about to decide history." They descended to camp, where gray winds slunk between tents, scattering leashed hounds. Fires crackled. Blacksmith hammers sang. Ravens and crows danced on updrafts scented with stew and anticipation. On the march south, Gendry rode near Jon and the Karstark outriders. He wore plate Mikken fitted to his broad frame, and at his hip hung the plain direwolf sword. Nights he walked the line, checking rims and rivets, repairing helm straps by flickering embers. Men began to bring him broken buckles, cracked pike heads. Word spread that Lord Eddard's ward was a smith of no small blessing. He accepted ale as payment, never coin, and told stories of Winterfell's kitchens that made weary soldiers laugh. Robb's host reached the Green Fork, split to confuse spies, and reunited beneath the twins. Their banners clashed with politics. Walder Frey leered for concessions. In the command pavilion, as negotiations dragged, Catelyn asked Gendry to mend a hinge on the bridge's drawlever. Small work, but Walder valued pleasance. Gendry fixed it before daylight, grumbling. Frey, impressed, offered passage. Few realized steel and sweat opened that gate as much as Catelyn's diplomacy. Battle of the Whispering would burn Gendry's senses raw. Night under Moonslice, owl cries washed by distant river. He followed Jon through brush, heart hammering louder than plate, sword slick in gauntlet. When the horn sounded they charged, direwolf howls, into a camp of dozing lions. Gendry's sword met mail with bone-jarring clang. He pivoted as Jon drilled into a pikeman, Ghost tearing hamstrings. Chaos smelled of blood and horse piss. Gendry felled 2 men. One wore bright red cloak, another a courier half-armored. Fires surged, screamed. By dawn Jaime Lannister knelt bound, hair matted with dew and defeat. Robb's men cheered raggedly, counting costs in silence. 500 foes slain, 200 Northerners. Later, washing crimson from his blade in river shallows, Gendry heard Jon's low oath. If only father could see. Ghost drank nearby, muzzle pink. Gendry splashed water on his face, tasting iron still. "We'll free him," he vowed. Raven feathers drifted on the current, ominous. Another message winged north. King Joffrey had executed Eddard Stark upon the steps of Baelor's September. Sansa witnessed. Arya vanished. The news struck camp like a plague wind. Robb's roar tore pavilions. Catelyn collapsed to knees. Jon walked into dark alone until Ghost fetched him back. Gendry felt the world tilt, the pillar that anchored him crumbling. That night torches lined Robb's war council. Great Jon thundered consent. Banners of the north knelt, hailing Robb Stark king in the north. Swords slammed earth in echo. Amid the uproar, Gendry stood mute, grief beating slow. Jon's eyes brimmed, but he bowed knee. When Gendry followed, kneeling to a king barely older than himself, he felt a chain slip from around his heart. Here was a cause larger than his bloodline, deeper than forged iron. Dawn bled gray. Funeral pyres for fallen men painted smoke ribbons across new sky. Jon spoke with Gendry by dim coals. "What will you do now?" "Fight." The answer came iron true. "For the king in the north." "And after?" Gendry studied the nascent sunrise. "After we break the wheel of those who kill fathers and children for crowns, I'll build." Faint smile. "Winterfell could use new hinges once snow melts." Jon clapped his shoulder. "Then may we both live to see that summer." They returned to duties, unaware of distant dragons stirring or fleets raising sails. Yet between them they carried seeds of future days. Honor welded to resilience, steel tempered by friendship, bastards forging legacy not of birth, but of choice. In Winterfell, Bran dreamt of wolves running through weirwood groves, a stag at their side, antlers silvered with frost. He woke and whispered the vision to Maester Luwin, who wrote it down in trembling hand, though he understood little. Snow fell again, gentle this time, as though the sky tried to hush the realm's wounds with soft white kisses. Far below, armies marched, queens schemed, crows feasted. But within each breath of swirling flake there lay the memory of one man's promise: to forge a bond stronger than blood, to keep the fire of the north alive through the longest night. And so the story stretched onward, slow as winter itself, carving paths of iron and heart through land and legend alike, awaiting the next hammer stroke, the next sunrise, the next choice made in snow and shadow beneath the beating wings of fate. The night before the host of the north broke camp at Riverrun, a hush fell that no ration fire or harp nor distant whistle of the Trident could truly disturb. Sentries paced with measured steps along the earthen ramparts, their lanterns swinging in amber arcs. Beyond, tents sprawled like drifts of dust cloud across the floodplain, pennants limp in the damp air. Gendry sat cross-legged outside the half-collapsed bellows tent he had turned into a makeshift smithy, sleeves rolled to the elbow, thick fingers guiding a whetstone along the curve of a bastard sword that was not his own. Each rasp sparked a ghost of light that died before touching ground. Across the path, Jon Snow lingered beneath a reed-thatched lean-to where Ghost kept vigil, crimson eyes narrowed on the gloam. Jon spoke little since word came of 200 lords bending knee to Robb, but his silences had grown different. No longer the quiet of uncertain belonging, rather the tempered stillness of duty accepted. Gendry caught him staring at the host's far torches, and after a time Jon eased near, dropping to his haunches. "Edge is straight," Jon said, twisting the blade in the faint illumination until it mirrored twin points of forge fire. "Will you use it tomorrow?" "It's Lord Mormont's." Gendry slid the stone one last stroke and set steel across his knees. "The old bear's too stiff to swing like he once could. Says I have reach and arms thick as a pine trunk." I told him pine snaps. He said that's why he lent me iron. Jon's smile flashed, gone as quick. "You could say no." "I could." He thumbed a nick at the guard. "But I watched Ser Stevran dance with a pike at the twins. Saw that red bolt burst from his neck like a little fountain. If iron must kill, let skilled hands guide it. You sound more maester than smith." "I'm a ward, remember? Must collect trades. Smith, maester, mule skinner, half a scribe." His grin chased the tension, yet didn't quite catch it. "And swordsman 7 willing." Jon's gloved thumb traced the worry-grooved pommel of Longclaw. "They say we meet Tywin's vanguard at dawn. Scouts mark spears 3 columns deep. Some think Ser Kevin leads. Others whisper Gregor Clegane rides in front like a bull at harvest." Gendry's swallow cracked the hush. "The mountain..." His mind summoned Micken's tales. Villages roasted like chestnuts, infants dashed on stones. "If he lives to see me, at least he'll notice this hammerhead of a face." Ghost padded forward, sniffing at the fresh sharpened steel. Jon ruffled the direwolf's pale mane. "Stay light on your feet. Ser Roderick drilled you half the winter. Form first, then force. Gendry sheathed the sword and rose. Form, then force, he echoed. And if I forget, scream it in my ear, or ghost will nip you. Jon's hand lingered on friend's shoulder. Get sleep, Smith. Dawn's soon. The first pale rim of sun found the northern host arrayed on a stony ridge south of the Ruby Ford, breath steaming, the wind carrying the galvanic tang of early dew across serried ranks. Gray wind prowled the line as Robb, new-crowned yet unaccustomed, rode with Theon and Great Jon to align companies. Shields flashed direwolf, bear, flayed man, merman. Above them a single black stag on gray field fluttered small as a secret, pinned to Gendry's standard pole near the command tent, concealed among baggage until Robb, on impulse, ordered it raised. If he belongs to Winterfell, his emblem rides with mine. Catelyn had pressed a hand to Gendry's chest at that, half permission, half warning. Now, under honey-weak sunlight, the cloth slapped against its staff behind the second line of spearmen where Gendry stood, helm off, listening to the hush that precedes a shout. A stir rippled the ridge as Jon guided Ghost back from a reconnaissance run. They form on the low ground, he reported to Robb not 10 yards from Gendry's position. Pikes forward, archers behind irregular wicker, knights cluster to the left flank, Ser Adam Marbrand's colors. Robb's jaw set. Great Jon holds center, Karstark's on right. I take left with Umber outriders. His gaze flickered to Gendry. Ward of Winterfell, you guard the king's banner. Stand fast. Machines of war, the creak of drawn bow, clink of plate, wicker of restless destriers, built in layered rumor until the Lannister horn brayed from the river skirts. Then time leapt. Volley after volley of gray-fletched shafts screamed. The field sprouted iron weeds. Umbers bellowed and thundered downhill, hoarse roars swallowed by hoof drum. Gendry's row advanced 5 strides, shield wall rippling under arrow impact like beaten drumskin. Stones underfoot slid. The clangor of first clash rang cataclysmic. He saw little but jolts of motion. A red-plumed sergeant diving spear first into the line. A tall heart halberd shearing helm into ruin. Mud splattering islets. Training held. Gendry ducked, parried, thrust. Knuckles numbed beneath rawhide. Mormont's bastard sword proved a lever, not a club. Its edge whispered through mail at the joints. When an enemy footman slammed shield rim into his left knee, he pivoted inward, hammered pommel to visor, felt bone yield. Blood sprayed scarlet onto the gray stag sewn above his heart. Form, then force. Minutes or lifetimes later, horns keened retreat. Lannister backs rolled like a tide receding, banks of spear stubble marking their ebb. Gendry staggered downhill in half-pursuit until Robb's rally blew. Gray wind snapped at fleeing heels but turned at his master's whistle. All at once the valley stilled, save for moans of men pinned beneath comrades. Gendry wrenched helm free, chest heaving. His tabard clung wet and hot, the cloth's hidden stag soaked near black. Beside him Jon braced on Longclaw, hair plastered dark. Ghost's muzzle dripped copper. Their eyes met. Shock first, then gratitude fierce enough to burn away fear. Battle madness drained, leaving raw comprehension of survival's price. By sunset they tallied cost. 200 Northmen fallen, near thrice that of Lannister host, though Tywin's vanguard broke and limped to Harrenhal's austere refuge. Among the slain lay Galbart Glover's youngest, gutted by a stray bolt. Jon soothed the lords weeping by sitting silent through the dark. Gendry spent dusk by the smithy wagon, mending rivets split by poleaxes, his hammer's tap subdued as funeral drums. Catelyn appeared, square shoulders trimmed in wolf fur. They tell me you held the banner line. Her gaze slid to the blood-mott stag. Mostly I tried not to die, he answered, wiping a rivet's burr. Others died better. Death is death, not measured by banners. She laid a hand, tentative, on his blackened bicep. My lord husband would have thanked you. I do. And she departed, leaving a silence sweet and heavy as summer wine. 3 weeks of hard marching south traced the King's Road's winter-scarred spine. Battle at the stone mill, parley at Ashford's burnt orchard, a skirmish near Sedgewood where Lannister outriders tested Robb's rear but broke on Jon's countercharge. Each fight carved deeper grooves into Gendry's shoulders, honed reflex. At night he discovered calluses where none existed, scars layering like rings on an oak, living testament to days measured by sword stroke. Yet amid steel travail came small mercies. Jon coaxed Ghost to teach Gendry the stillness of forest hunting. Together they snared hare, roasted flesh over brush fires, trading stories. Jon of the Wall he still meant to join someday. Gendry of Flea Bottom's secret tunnels where orphans swapped trinkets for stale bread. One charred midnight they found themselves laughing about Septa Mordane's scandalized gasp when Arya somersaulted off a hay bale in practice yard back in Winterfell. Skirts be damned. Laughter felt precarious, like stepping on thin ice, but it held. Near Bitterbridge, ravens swooped from the reach. Renly Baratheon proclaimed himself king of Westeros, camped beneath a field of golden roses and a stag crowned in green enamel. Robb convened council inside a tattered silk pavilion captured at the Twins, light leaking through sword holes. Catelyn's voice broke the murmur. We need allies. If Renly holds Storm's End and much of the Reach, joining our cause tips the balance. Great Jon snorted. Another king, crowns breeding like rabbits. Robb fingered map edges. Mother will treat with him. Decision hung final. I press on Harrenhal to bait Lord Tywin. But King Renly respects power. He'll heed the Lady of Winterfell. When Catelyn requested escort, Jon and Gendry stepped forward together. She studied them, war waging behind her eyes. Ser Brynden leads my guard, she resolved. Jon, stay with your king. And you, Gendry, Harrenhal will press need of smiths more than Bitterbridge. She softened at his crestfallen blink. Your brother squires require you. Thus parted paths. Gendry watched as Bryndon's column turned west under moon, Lady Stark at point. He touched the wolf-head brooch at his collarbone. Mulled words he might never speak. Keep her safe. Yet safe was a dream, as intangible as the warm bakery breeze of his childhood nights. Meeting Harrenhal at last, they discovered a corpse of a castle. Burned bones of towers, gargoyles shattered, blackened walls weeping tar tears where dragons once scorched life. Tywin Lannister had abandoned the ruin 2 days earlier, leaving gibbets and tar barrels for greeting. Flies droned. Robb set quarters in the hall melted open to sky, sandstone fused like glass. Within the yard's shadowpox, Gendry hammered a new forge from discarded hearthstones, scavenged bellows from gutted kitchens, built chimney vents through cracks where wildfire had eaten mortar. For 9 days he and Mikken coaxed blade edges back from ruin while crows perched overhead, crying witness. Soldiers queued for repairs. Gendry worked until knuckles split, but the act of shaping order from charred memory steadied his thoughts. Jon drifted often, haunted by letters from the wall. Benjen still missing, raiding parties sighted beyond Frostfangs. Duty drags me north, he confessed one fog-marbled dawn, Longclaw across knees. Gray wind growled at the direwolf across yard, but Ghost sat quiet as frost, muzzle pressed to Jon's boot. Your oath comes, Gendry said, striking sparks from a shale flint. But Robb needs you yet. Robb is my brother. Still, the wall is home. Jon's palm tightened round the sword's leather. And if the realm shatters, watchful eyes must remain on its edge. Gendry nudged a half-forged spearhead deeper into coals. Where you go, watchful will follow. He met Jon's dark gaze, sincerity raw. I've no oath but the feel of iron in hand, and the promise made to a lord now dead. When you ride, I'll guard your flank. He chuffed, assuming the world still stands. Jon smiled, faint as first snow. Let's keep it upright a while yet. From tower-top horns blew abrupt, a column riding hard from the south. Scouts dashed in Valemen, banners of falcon and crescent moon. Hostage trade they bore plus ill news. Renly Baratheon slain in his pavilion, shadow no man saw. Lordlings scurrying to Tyrell and Lannister camps. At that blow hope sagged like rotted beam. Robb retreated into war plans. Rickard Karstark demanded Jaime's head for his fallen sons. Great John drank and howled at gray sky. Gendry hammered, shaping sound into numbness. The clang echoed half-ruined halls where ghosts of Heron's sons still shrieked. He thought of Renly, king he never met, father he never knew, both gone as sparks on anvil. Summer waned though leaves stayed green, unnatural lingering warmth that set maesters muttering of comets and portents. Northmen seized towns near Duskendale, skirmished with sellswords clad in gold. Whispers of wildfire caches beneath King's Landing seeped through rumor vein, of a stag-born bastard perched within Dragonstone's wards, of a fiery priestess claiming Azor Ahai among Renly's fallen knights. One night, thunderheads stacked above Harrenhal like black fortresses. Lightning split sky, rinsed walls in ghost blue. Robb slept little, pacing corridors where Aegon's fire once pooled molten. Gendry found him at the archery yard, arrows thunking into charred wood. "You stand sentinel, my lord?" Gendry asked, hood-drenched. Robb lowered bow. "Sentinel to ghosts." He glanced east, where storm masked the horizon. "If the Stormlands break for Stannis, he will choke Kingsroad. Tywin nips at our heels. Mother writes of Tyrell roses blooming for a new king yet unnamed." He loosed a sigh. "Every path tangles." Gendry set a waterlogged helm on a stump. "When metal knots, heat, and hammer," he tossed him a rag. "Strike while glowing." Robb's smile was wry. "Words of a smith, works for iron, might for war." Robb aimed, released, arrow pierced Helm's eye. "Perhaps." He retrieved the shaft, handed it to Gendry. "Tell me, if your father were alive, would he ride to Stannis? Or to me?" Gendry hesitated. Rain needled his scalp, warm as tears. "Never knew him, but I knew Lord Stark. He'd follow honor wherever it led." Robb nodded. "Then I must keep mine clear as steel." He clapped Gendry's shoulder. "And pray the hammer's true." Catelyn returned months later with Brienne of Tarth, Renly's blue-armored warrior who, they whispered, watched a shadow slay her king. She came bearing grave news of Stannis besieging King's Landing, of wildfire exploding the Blackwater into green doom, of Tywin and Tyrell riding in time to crown a boy king secure. Worse, she bore tidings of Sansa still hostage, and of Arya vanished, feared dead. Robb listened stone-faced. In that hall Gendry saw the boy who once wrestled Bran vanish, replaced by a man forged at sword point. Later, Gendry found Jon sitting alone on Rampart Walkway, the Blackwater tale echoing in his ears. "So wildfire spared the lions." Jon's voice rasped. "And my sisters." Gendry leaned arms on wet stone. "Arya's cutthroat enough to outfox any queen. And Sansa?" Pain carved lines at Jon's mouth. "She's gentle as summer rain. King's Landing devours gentle." Gendry answered nothing. Words could not mend steel snapped. Catelyn's counsel that night ended in shouting. She argued Jaime for daughter's trade. Karstark thundered vengeance. Robb paced, torn. Dawn saw a prisoner's tent flap open. Jaime gone, Brienne and Catelyn vanished upriver. Karstark's fury erupted. 2 Lannister squires were dragged from cells and butchered in their chains. That act chained the North to doom heavier than any helm. Robb ordered Karstark's arrest. Jon caught Gendry's gaze across the yard. Lines fractured. The host's spine cracked. Late that evening, Gendry hammered alone until sparks danced like fireflies. Rain quit. Fog coiled above moats. Footsteps sounded, Jon, solemn. "Robb sends me north," he said, voice hollow. "I ride to Castle Black by dawn. The night's watch calls." Gendry stilled the hammer mid-fall. "So soon." Karstark's hanging leaves gaps. "A Stark must ride with survivors to the neck. Guard retreat should it come." He exhaled. "My path forks no longer." Gendry quenched a spearhead, steam swirling. "I swore to guard your flank." Jon half smiled. "You guard the king now. He needs every blade." He unclasped a small leather pouch. "Your share of coin from the Harrenhal plunder. By steel, not ale." Gendry's throat tightened. "I'll repay in iron." Ghost padded forward. Gendry knelt, pressing forehead to Direwolf's. "Keep him safe." The beast huffed, as if promising. At dawn, Jon rode from Harrenhal with a ragged column, black banner snapping. Gendry watched until dust swallowed hooves, until only the hush of a new day remained. Turning to the forge, he set iron to fire, shaping grief into usefulness. Autumn settled. Leaves at last turned. Robb marched for the twins, intent on crossing north to crush secession at Moat Cailin. In baggage train, Gendry worked his portable furnace, shoeing steeds, patching mail. He earned new scars, one from a snapping chain link, another grazing cut on cheek from bandit ambush near Sharer. Each scar felt like tally marks in life's ledger. At Seven Streams, a litter bearing an ailing prisoner approached. Arya Stark, or so rumors said, rescued from outlaw caves by small handful of Northmen. Gendry's hammer froze mid-swing when the girl stumbled out, hair ragged, eyes fierce. But this Arya was not. Though her build reminded, her spirit shimmered. A Frey waif hostage for good faith. The ache of false hope rolled through camp like fever. Northmen's spirits dimmed crossing bogs. Then one dawn horns blared. Grey wind found Karstark's escaped men lurking near supply wagons. Blood spilled. Robb's decree ended on gallows. The host moaned but obeyed. That night Gendry approached the king, offering newly forged fetters for traitor legs. Robb stared at them, amazed a smith ward still hammered while world unraveled. He grasped Gendry's shoulder and whispered, "Hold this kingdom together longer than I can." At last the twins. Again that narrow neck of stone and greed loomed. Walder Frey, pinched and liver-spotted, greeted them with thin courtesy. Robb sought passage. Frey offered feast. Tents sprouted like gray mushrooms on riverbank. Banners drooped, damp with mist rising from waters that whispered of ghost kings drowned. Gendry spent eve of the wedding within forges of the twins, rickety sheds hot as Dornish noon, repairing buckles on House Bolton's helms. He sensed unease. Sparks leapt too high, metals hissed too long. Gray wind barked beyond gates, restless. A drum behind his ribs pounded arrhythmia. Night fell amber inside the great hall, torches flaring against dark rafters. Northmen filled benches, throats loud with sickly cheer. Gendry, assigned with groomsmen to back tables, ate dry bread while fiddling knife that felt inadequate. When bedding vows roared and doors slammed, crossbows cocked from gallery. Horror unfurled crimson. He never forgot shriek of pipes choking mid-tune, or sick clang of pewter goblet against skull. Instinct flung him sideways. Coral hissed past ear. Chaos crashed, swords drawn, arrows raining, wine turning gore. He glimpsed Robb staggering, bolt and shoulder, Catelyn clawing at her dress. Gray wind howled distant agony before cutting short. Gendry upended a trestle, seized a fallen halberd's haft. He carved path toward dais, each heartbeat a lifetime. A Bolton man lunged. Gendry's backswing split nose to cheek. Frey guards surged. He ducked, parried, retreated behind overturned hogshead. Smoke from torches mixed with iron stink. Memory blurred. He saw Catelyn seize Lord Walder's pale wife, dagger to throat. Heard her pleading for Robb's life. Clatter of steel. Robb gasping mother. Then read betrayal. Roose Bolton's words. The Lannisters send their regards. His blades sliding through mail. Robb sagged like a felled oak. Catelyn's scream shredded air. Gendry's howl joined, raw-throated. Crossbows thudded. Catelyn swayed, throat blooming ruby. Silence fell as if world inhaled. Somewhere behind, boot kicked barrel, jolting Gendry to motion. He ducked beneath corpse-laden bench, crawled through slime of ale and blood. Arrows pinged wood. Men shouted, scouring. Gendry slipped into shadow beyond dais, stumbled down servant's stair. Below, wine cellars labyrinthine offered hiding. They reeked of spoiled grapes, of rust. He ducked behind casks, heart battering, until noise above dulled. Minutes, hours? When footfalls neared, he readied knife. But Jon Snow's face, pale with shock, would not appear. Jon was miles north. Instead, lantern bobbed over Frey butchers checking corners. Gendry held breath, pressed tight to wet stone. They passed. He found trapdoor out to riverbank, slid into reed tangle, and crawled. Moon showed corpses afloat like bloated petals. He waited, numb, let current sweep him beyond torch radius. On far shore he collapsed upon sodden earth while rain began again, soft and relentless. Morning bled gray. Crows cawed from parapets where stark banners once flew. Gendry lay beneath an upturned skiff, shivering. His clothes stiff with dried blood, he forced limbs to crawl inland. A stand of elm offered scant cover. From there he watched fry men pile bodies onto carts. He saw Gretchen's severed hand nailed to gatepost, saw Grey Wind's head sewn to Robb's corpse astride a horse paraded for jeering amusement. At each sight he retched bile. He knew then Winterfell's king was no more, the wolf pack shattered, and his oath to Ned hung tattered, yet not severed. For 2 fair-haired girls still lived, perhaps. For Jon at the wall. For Bran and Rickon rumored dead yet maybe breathing. Someone must live to forge future from ruin. Knight of stealth, he stole bread, waterskin, a battered shield. He found the grey stag banner near refuse pile, torn, blood-forged. He folded cloth, tucked it inside gambeson. Before dawn he slipped into marshes south of the Twins, alone. Mists hugged earth, stars hid. Each step through sedge whispered betrayal but carried him onward. He did not know where road led, Riverrun now held by lions. The vale closed, the north burning. Yet the wall rose tall in mind. There stood Jon, with purpose upright as Longclaw. Perhaps their Gendry could hammer new world. Perhaps. 3 days of mud, of stolen oats and spring water, his boots rotting, soul raw. On 4th dusk he encountered survivors. Meage Mormont's daughter Lyra, visage streaked with ash, 2 Karstark bowmen wounded. They eyed his sword but spared. Grief thickened unity. Together they trekked northward through willow-choked streams, hiding by day, walking by star. Gendry mended their kit with pliers and rivets, found purpose even in flight. When they reached Oldstones, they paused among tumbled stones where Jenny of Oldstones once danced with ghosts. There, Gendry raised the grey stag banner. Tiny, ragged, beneath a half-standing arch, Lyra asked why. Because wolves may be dead, he whispered, voice barely wind. But the memory of their fire belongs beside my hammer, and fire can be reforged. That night he dreamed. A forge beneath heart tree roots, anvils of white weirwood, hammers of dire wolf jaws. Jon stood across flames, eyes dark with night's watch vows. Reaching. Between them iron glowed red, shaping a blade twin-edged. One side stag, one wolf, point cutting shadow. He woke before dawn, hand clenched around unseen hilt. The dream lingered warm. He rose, roused companions, and started the climb toward the neck. Months dwindled. In the neck they found Crannogman lines harassing Fry patrols. Howland Reed himself greeted them, gray of beard, sharp of wit. Reed knew Ned's honor. He listened to Gendry's account with tear-bright eyes, then offered passage by secret causeways beneath the peat. Gendry accepted, swearing service if needed. In Reed's reed harp tent, they learned of wildlings attacking the wall, of Stannis riding north to defend it, of a bastard who rallied Night's Watch at Castle Black. Jon's name burned like brand across parchment of Reed's intel. Gendry's breaths quickened. He realized path set by dream, north through bog, past Moat Cailin, now held by Iron Men, to the King's Road and on to the Gift. Reed's daughter, Mira, guided them by hidden ways, nets of vines that swallowed sound. Storm one dusk shattered sky purple. They huddled in hollow tree. Gendry shared fry-stolen cheese, strangest communion. Mira spoke of Bran Stark traveling beyond wall, guided by dread and hope. Gendry's hammer hand trembled. He saw tapestry threads weaving. Bran alive, Jon reborn in leadership, Arya unknown, Sansa hostage, each thread waiting a smith. Beyond the bog they spied smoke from Moat Cailin's siege towers. Bolton flayed men banners snapping. Traitors to wolves. To cross unseen, Reed planned night infiltration, and Gendry insisted on forging grapples from scavenged wagon iron. He hammered by starlight, shaping hooks silent, muffle each clang with sodden leather. Form, then force. They climbed rampart at Mooncrest, blades smothered, swamps hissed. Gendry's heart hammered louder than clash at Ruby Ford, but each step measured. Every rivet he had forged earlier felt string of fate. They slipped within crumbling tower, surprised Iron Man sentries half-drunk. Short fight ended by spear point. Opening Sally Gate, they freed northern prisoners rotting inside mud cages. Bran's sworn friend Jojen's cousin, Blackwood scouts, a pair of Giantsbane wildlings captured south of Wall. Those allies sowed chaos, lighting oil stores, while Reed's Crannogmen sniped torches. Flames licked siege towers. Wind carried screams. Under veil of smoke, they fled north across Causeway, leaving Bolton banners to burn. At Dawn Ridge, Gendry looked back. The moat spires silhouetted ember red, same hue as forge coals. A sense of forging path, not just sword, filled him, each blow creating road to something cleaner. Beyond, the King's Road stretched like promise. They marched. Riverlands behind them moaned under lion paw. Still they pressed. Winter winds returned, pure and keen. One morning snowflakes dusted Gendry's pauldrons. First true snow since the neck. He closed eyes, felt icy kiss. Memory of Winterfell's first winter for him, Bran's laughter, Jon's counsel. Pain and hope entwined. They met Night's Watch rangers scouting refugees near Queen's Crown. Black cloaks bowed to Reed, recognized Gendry's company as friend. Stannis holds Castle Black, one ranger said. Snow is Lord Commander. Gendry's chest surged. The ranger offered escort. Within fortnight, they glimpsed the wall. Colossal white-blue colossus riven with sunlight shards, stretching beyond horizon. It dwarfed all grief, dwarfed even dragons of old in mind's eye. At Castle Black's gate the sentry shouted challenge. Mira answered in true tongue of green men, portcullis raised. Gendry stepped beneath ice-vaulted arch where black brothers thronged, faces haggard. Atop stairs stood Jon Snow, Lord Commander's cloak heavy on shoulders, long claw belted. He descended, disbelief softening stern lines as he beheld Gendry soot-smeared and travel-gaunt. You came, Jon breathed, clasping forearms. Gendry exhaled months of fear. Forge won't tend itself. Behind Jon, a girl cloaked in wildling furs emerged, red hair, fierce, yet soft in gaze. A giant boy with shaggy direwolf pelt. Ser Davos one hand. Lady Melisandre's shadow flicker. Knights of the Queen's men. Free folk children huddled. A tapestry of fractured Westeros collecting at world's edge. Jon looked around. We stand on brink of night darker than any fry. He met Gendry's eyes. I need a smith who remembers warmth of wolves. Gendry unshouldered hammer, iron singing faint as heartbeat. Then we better light furnaces. North wind howled like wolf chorus. Snow thickened. Within the wall's belly, forges waited. Cold stone, mute and vil, dreams of fire. Gendry followed Jon into gloom, sparks already dancing in his mind. Of armor for giants, swords for wildlings, chains for gates, and perhaps, somewhere beyond storm, a piece hammered straight, edge by edge, blow by blow, until broken world held together like the strongest weld. In that moment he did not feel bastard, nor orphan, nor ward. He felt the glow of iron ready to be reborn, as the gray stag within his tunic rested over heart, wolf beside. And the beat of that heart promised new song of steel that would ring, long and true, across the snow-wrapped silence of the end of days. Ask ChatGPT.